Okay, so to begin today's storyline, we actually pick up with Superman number 26. Now, with this book right here, right off the bat, we get reminded that Superman is dating Wonder Woman. Now, of course, this took place right in the middle of the New 52, and this would go on until the very end of the New 52, with these two characters dating one another. Now, with that being said, the book also reminds us of Lois Lane. Now, the reason why Lois Lane is so important for this moment right here in the video is because the last time we saw her was in the middle of Cywar. Now, Cywar was this big storyline that DC was doing as a way to introduce a new evil organization in the New 52 known as Hive. Now, with that being said, Lois Lane was able to gain powers in the middle of that storyline. And the reason why, because there were 20 people that went missing, and somehow that was connected to Brainiac. But when Lois Lane was able to find one of the 20, of course, she gained powers from that person, but her body fell into a coma. Now, her mind is still able to use the powers that she was given. And so right now, she's in the apartment of Clark Kent because she knows that Clark Kent is Superman. Now, on top of that right there, this is her kind of being in the room in a spirit form. It's not really her because, again, her body is in a coma, but she's coming to Clark Kent hoping that maybe he can find a way to free her from what's happening to her body and her mind. Now, this is the moment we get introduced to a new character in the New 52, Joshua Allen. Now, Joshua Allen is technically the new Parasite. Over the years in DC Comics, you had different characters take up the name Parasite, but basically Parasite is an old Superman villain. But of course, with the New 52, they try to do a new thing and give us a new Parasite. Now, this Parasite is actually different. Well, his origin is. What I mean is, Joshua Allen was your regular person from Metropolis. Unfortunately, he had gotten an alien flu, and with that alien flu, he had gained abilities. Of course, those abilities gave him the ability to absorb other people's energy, making him the new Parasite in the New 52, somebody to fight against Superman. Now, you do have us actually jump over to the hospital that Lois Lane is staying in. And the reason why, because we actually pick up with Superman about to go visit her. But before he is able to walk in, well, of course, he used his super hearing to come to find out that Lois Lane's father, Samuel Lane, is there. Now, of course, he's there to see his daughter, who's in a coma at the moment. But of course, he does tell her a big secret, thinking that she can't hear it. And that secret is Samuel Lane had met with the president. And the president apparently had asked Samuel Lane to take a spot in the Senate. And of course, Samuel Lane said yes, he will do that. But the reason why he's going to accept that offer is because he's trying to learn about another evil organization known as the Tower. Now, with that being said, you do have Superman walk into the room after her father has left. But of course, with Lois Lane having psychic abilities, she is able to talk to Clark Kent in his mind. And he does ask Lois Lane, if you wake up from your coma, are you going to tell the world my secret? And she says, yes, I am absolutely going to tell the world that Clark Kent is Superman. And that right there is huge. And it makes him worried about the future of his life. Now, you do have Superman actually leave the hospital. Now, when he does, here comes the big problem of the story. And that problem is our new Parasite character in the New 52, because he has arrived at the hospital. Now, I do want to mention one thing about Parasite. Yes, he does have the ability to absorb other people's energy, but here comes the big problem for Parasite. He constantly has to do that over and over and over again, because his hunger just keeps growing and growing. And so with his hunger, he constantly has to feed off people's energy. And of course, sometimes it kills people. But with him arriving at the hospital, we know why he's here. He's here for Lois Lane because Lois Lane is right now giving off a huge amount of psychic energy, a new kind of energy for him to absorb, to hopefully finally get rid of his huge hunger that he has. Now, we do pick up with Superman right now meeting up with Dr. Veritas. Now, Veritas is a character we actually met in our earlier videos of both Superman and Supergirl, but she does run a science facility right near the core of the Earth. Now, of course, the reason why you have these two characters meeting up with one another is because Superman is very worried about Lois Lane. Why is her body in a coma, but her mind is still able to use her newfound psychic abilities? And that is the moment you have Dr. Veritas tell her, listen, Lois Lane's mind is evolving. Her powers are evolving. She's changing into something. And the problem is they have no idea what she is changing into. But of course, that is the moment you have Superman using his super hearing to find out that something is going on at the hospital that Lois Lane is at. And so he must leave to go help out with that situation. Now, we do see Superman actually fly over to the hospital because he did hear that Lois Lane Hospital is being attacked by Parasite. Now, I do want to mention one thing about these two characters. This is not the first time that these two characters have met with one another. They have fought against each other before, but of course it happened in a different book that we did not cover. But with that being said, Parasite knows when it comes to Superman, he's also able to feed off Superman. And when he does, Parasite usually does get very powerful. And so you do have Superman realize if he wants to actually defeat Parasite, he needs to go ahead and wrap up this fight very quickly before Parasite is able to absorb all of his energy. Now, of course, this fight does go on for a tad bit, but that is the moment you have Superman realize that Parasite is not here for him. Instead, Parasite is actually here for someone else, and that someone else is Lois Lane. And so, of course, now you have Superman freaking out because his best friend is about to be the appetizer or the main course for Parasite's dinner tonight as he's going around feeding off different people. But of course, with Lois Lane giving off all that psychic energy, it's the reason why Parasite is here for. He's hoping that energy can finally end his hunger, but also possibly make him really strong and begin to wreak havoc across the world. And so when we jump into Superman number 27, we actually pick up with Superman still fighting against Parasite. Now, Parasite is actually a great villain for Superman in a way where basically this is a villain who has the ability to absorb Superman's powers, to go toe to toe with Superman to up a certain point until Superman is able to find a different way to actually stop Parasite. But with that being said, we know why Parasite is here for. He's here for Lois Lane. His goal is to get her. Now, while Superman is fighting against Parasite, and it does seem like just maybe, Parasite is about to actually kill off Superman and then go after Lois Lane, that is the moment you have Jonathan step in. Now, Jonathan is the boyfriend of Lois Lane. Now, honestly, this character to me personally is not that important at all. I mean, he does pop up here and there in later stories, and he does play a small roles in those stories, but in reality, for this storyline right here, he's only here to protect the girl he loves, which is Lois Lane. And so at the very last minute, he is able to help out Superman, and you have Superman take Lois Lane and Jonathan somewhere safe for the time being. And it is Superman telling Jonathan, hey, listen, I'm happy you helped me, but at the same time, you cannot risk your life. And on top of that, risk Lois Lane's life. Your goal right now is to get her and get the heck out of here. Now, we actually do jump over to Cat Grant. Now, Cat Grant is actually the partner of Clark Kent. What I mean is, by this point in the DC Comics world, in the New 52, Clark Kent had left the Daily Planet. And the reason why, because the Daily Planet is actually owned by Morgan Edge. And Clark Kent cannot stand Morgan Edge at all. He seems like a very sketchy person and probably has his hands in a lot of different illegal things. But either way, Clark Kent had left the Daily Planet. Him and Cat Grant have formed their own blog, and their blog has gotten really popular over the last couple weeks. And the reason why, because their first story that just blew up was when the world found out that Superman was dating Wonder Woman, and that was huge. It was supposed to be a big secret and the whole world found out. Now, on top of that right there, now you had Clark Kent publish a story about how Samuel Lane is about to take a seat in the Senate office because the president asked him to. And that's also big news right there, because apparently no one else knew about that except the president and Samuel Lane. And now the big question is, how in the world did Clark Kent find out about that? But either way, you do have Cat Grant go into her office where she is actually confronted by Morgan Edge, their old boss. And you have Morgan Edge very happy about how big the blog has gotten. But at the same time, he's kind of like, a lot of stories that you have published is getting a lot of traffic in a good way. He wants to buy out Clark Kent's and Cat Grant's new blog and offers them $13 million. Now, to go ahead and wrap this book up, we actually do jump back over to Superman fighting against Parasite. Now, this fight does take a few more pages to wrap up, but it does wrap up in a very different way. What I mean is, you do have Superman realize how he'll be able to actually stop Parasite, because Parasite is here to feed off the energy of Lois Lane. And so you have Superman realize Lois Lane is giving off a high amount of psychic energy. So with that being said, why not go ahead and let Parasite absorb the energy of Lois Lane? Because she has so much energy, for Parasite, it will be too much for him to handle. And that happens right at this moment. You have Parasite try to absorb all of the energy he can from Lois Lane. But unfortunately, it was too much for him. And so his brain gets fried and he passes out. And the book ends right there. But the reason why I covered this two-part storyline is because we come to find out Parasite tells us this is what Brainiac sees every day. Now that right there tells you that Brainiac is about to come back to Earth for a very special reason. And matter of fact, the next video we are going to do is Superman Doom, where Doomsday returns to fight against Superman once again in the New 52. But with that being said, I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. And if you do, please hit that like button down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. Later, guys.